nature, things of that 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 nature.
Well, and welcome into that Pot of That Nature Transfer Portal Edition live stream here on a Sunday afternoon. John Neighbors alongside Curtis Wilkerson, as well as Andrew Ellis. And as we always tell you, we're going to talk about anybody that pops. And Arkansas just had a pop. Don't let the title misinform you because I'm an idiot. It's not Raylen Sharpe Ray. It's Sharp. All right. So just sometimes the P and the R get all mixed up and everything. So I know I'm going to hear about it, but that's fine. I'll own it. But either way, Arkansas gets a wide receiver, which last I checked, they needed a few of those considering how many are leaving the University of Arkansas. He is out of Fresno State, 5'9", 165, but played with Bobby Petrino at Missouri State. And guys, they got bodies. I know this was somebody that they were on top of, and looks like he's going to be taking his talents down to Fayetteville.
Well, John, first of all, don't feel bad about the Sharp thing. We get in hurries when we're trying to set up these live streams. I misspelled Malachi Singleton's last name, and he's been on the damn team for 2 years when he hit the portal. So it happens to the best of us, and I'm a Big J journalist, all right? So don't beat yourself up about it. By the way, you can make the change because I went in there and corrected it myself. But yeah, man, you're right. You know, Arkansas, as I understand it, they're looking to bring in 4 to 5 wide receivers out of the transfer portal. That's a lot. So you got to go out there and get some guys. Sharp was a visitor. This just made too much sense, right, for Arkansas. The connection there with Bobby Petrino, obviously, at Missouri State. And then he really took off the year that Petrino was at Texas A&M. I mean, he had 73 receptions, 991 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I understand it's Missouri State. It's pretty good production there. And then, hey, 51 catches, 523 yards, 3 tutties for Fresno State. So hasn't done it at this level at the SEC, but he's been productive at his 2 previous stops. Add some depth, add you some speed. As I understand it, he might be a yards after catch merchant, which Arkansas needs. Some guys who can catch the football and maybe make some people miss. Based on his size, I'm guessing that he's very fast. One of several additions that Arkansas will make in the wide receiver room. Again, it's not going to knock your socks off. It's not going to be a national headline, but I think it's a decent start for the Razorbacks here.
Yeah, I like the pickup. I think he's a solid guy. I mean, he's small, but obviously has a lot of production. And Bobby Petrino and his staff was with him in Ronnie Fouch, the receivers coach, was with him for 1 year. And it seems like they kind of kept their eye on him and kind of watched his progression. They followed his career with great interest. John, you like that? Yeah. And they decided to pull the trigger. And I mean, like you said, he had almost 1,000 yards at Missouri State, goes up a level to the FBS level at Fresno State, had just under 600 yards there. So shown he can take those next steps in his career, and just seems like a guy who gets better and better every year. I mean, if you just look at his career so far, I mean, he didn't play at all as a true freshman at Houston, goes to Missouri State, catches some passes in his next year, then takes a massive step forward there, then goes up a level and continues to be productive. And so I like betting on this kid. Seems like an overachiever. I hope this isn't the last under 6 foot receiver Arkansas brings in this weekend or announces that is signing with Arkansas this weekend. But again, I do think this is a good start. And I guess we should address the elephant in the room, which is this is your Isaiah Satania replacement, potentially. Not exactly the same player. Sharp's a little bit smaller, but that's the only receiver that Arkansas has had enter the portal so far, other than Davion Dozier, who didn't really play. Arkansas's got to replace a lot of guys. And so, I mean, this guy kind of fits the mold of a slot receiver, of someone that they need, and they're going to build some pieces around him. But I do think this is a solid start.
Well, and I was just looking at him too, and I know he's not in high school anymore, but just looking at some of the things that may be able to give you a little bit of an idea. Yeah, he's a little bit on the smaller side of 5'9", 165. So slightly bigger version of Reggie Fish, if you want to have any sort of connections there. But in high school, though, he is out of the state of Texas. He went to Allen, Texas, which, guys, I hear Allen, Texas is pretty good at high school football and developing players. Thankfully, he didn't have to be under Chad Morris. But he did, as an Allen high school kid, not only was great at football and won state titles, but he was also a track star. He had the 110-meter hurdles in 15.56, also the 300-meter hurdles at 38.38 as a junior, which was right there up in the top of the 6A class there in Texas. The only reason I bring that up is because most of the time we hear about, what's his time in the 100-meter dash, or the 4x100. I think it's even more interesting and even cooler if somebody's got like high school records in hurdles, because in football, it's more than just running in a straight line. You got to be able to have some jumps and some verticality there too while you're running. So I really like to see that. But here's the deal: is he going to be somebody that just steps right in? Is going to be a, whoa, my goodness, look at this guy? It's an all-world world beater type of wide receiver. I don't know, probably not. But I think the experience, as we mentioned, the Bobby Petrino experience, which Bobby, he already brought in some coaches that he was familiar with and liked this past year. He's going to do it with some of the players. I'll be interested to see, with Bobby and how he's done with wide receivers, because most of the guys from last year, not saying they were bad, but they weren't his guys. What is Bobby going to do with somebody that's his guy, that he handpicks, that he would like to be on this offense? That's what I'm going to be curious about.
Well, when you've got so much production that you have to replace, anytime you can get a guy who's already very familiar with your offense and your system, that is a good thing. So he will be ahead of the curve when he arrives on campus. And Arkansas is going to need that, because it's going to take some guys time to get acclimated. We saw it this year, and we're going to see it again in this coming season. So that is a boost for the Razorbacks and for him in terms of maybe being up a little bit higher on the pecking order early, because he knows what's going on out there. It looks like he did a little bit of punt return stuff at Missouri State. I don't know if that'll be something that translates to Arkansas. I don't think he did at Fresno, but just, I understand he's a little fellow there, right? So you always wonder about that, but I'm just kind of looking at his game log from this year at just some production against some of the bigger schools. He had 2 receptions for 23 yards, but a touchdown against Michigan in the opener, and Fresno State nearly beat him there. Let's see, against our boy Barry Odom and UNLV, he had 10 catches, 116 yards. I mean, that'll play against a pretty good UNLV defense. 6 receptions for 60 yards against Washington State, and then 4 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown against UCLA. So, I mean, he made some plays in there against, the power conference, power 4, whatever the hell it is, competition that you see. So it's different. I get it when it's the week in, week out grind of Arkansas schedule in general, plus the SEC. So I'm not saying he's going to be a dude who goes out there and averages 7 for 70 every game. But I think, given his track record and everything, you can count this guy in, maybe pencil him in as somebody who should be a contributor at wide receiver for you.
Yeah, I like the familiarity with the coaching staff. I also, weirdly enough, I know this will be his 4th school in 5 years. I actually kind of like that he's been at a bunch of different places, and he's had such a unique journey to get to this point in the SEC, where he's had to bounce around. He's had to kind of get it out the mud and grind and make those progressions each year. And so you feel like you're going to get a kid that's pretty motivated to kind of show that he can really play at this level, because that's kind of what he did at Fresno State this past year. He had to prove, hey, I'm an FCS guy, but I can play at this level. He proved that, and so we'll see if he's able to make that same transition to the SEC. Curtis, you read off his game log, which kind of tells the story a little bit, and I know I compared him to Satania, but really he's just replacing his spot. In terms of skill set, I think him and Satania are actually pretty different. Satania is a lot more of a home run hitter, a deep threat who can take the top off of a defense, and I do not believe Raylen Sharpe is going to be doing that, but I do think he's going to be that guy that 3rd and 4 gets open over the middle, finds a soft spot in the zone, really shifty, agile in small space, make guys miss and get open and create space. And again, that's something that I feel like this fan base has been screaming for the last few years, is just someone that can get open against man coverage, someone that can find those soft spots and create space in small areas. And that's something that he's excels at. Again, they're going to need to get some big play threats, some guys that can really make plays in the red zone, make plays downfield. But again, I do think Raylen Sharpe is a nice start. You get a guy that has some experience, has some familiarity, and I think can be that possession type receiver for the Razorbacks.
Okay, I'm going to give this a shot, guys. We're going to see how this goes. I have some highlights for those of you who would like to see the type of wide receiver that you're getting out of a guy like Raylen Sharpe. We'll see how this goes. But essentially, we're looking at a guy that was at Missouri State. No audio, so this is how we keep the monetization. But it's like one of these, of course, the hype videos. I don't care about this stuff. So here's just a few of the highlights here. Just looking at him, as far as, he talked about the shiftiness of him. They really like to, at least in just the short type of highlights that I saw, they really like to just kind of have the ball in his hands and him go downfield and be really shifty with like that type of thing. Like those are the moves that you would like to see. Also interesting, he was the team captain too for Missouri State for what it's worth. So he'll be one of the 18 captains that Arkansas will have this next season, I guess. So But yeah, so these are just a few highlights for those of you who are wanting to know like the type of wide receiver and his ability there at Missouri State, mainly not so much as Fresno, but at Missouri State.
Beautiful.
Yeah, kind of like it. I mean, that's the thing when people were talking about trying to get Bobby Petrino's offense and everything. That was one thing I felt like this year. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not saying they were bad wide receivers or anything like that. But it just seemed to have lacked the get the ball in their hands and let them make a play. Like, I don't feel like they actually had that type of wide receiver. You felt like you did with Satania, and maybe he still is, but that was one element where you just didn't feel like you had it. You had Tesla, you had Andrew Armstrong, you had good wide receivers, but I want to see, if we're talking about Bobby Petrino's offense, I want to see those types of guys. It's not going to say just be Joe Adams, but get a Jarius Wright, Joe Adams, Marquell Wade type of wide receivers where, hey, when they get the ball in their hands, no matter where they're at on the field, no matter what's the situation, no matter who's in front of them, no matter what's going on, they have the ability to take it to the house. I want to see some more of that if they have the chance.
Yeah, well, outside of Andrew Armstrong, they didn't have anybody who could just catch the football and make somebody miss. Satania, for as fast as he was, I think there probably is something to be said for track speed versus just a fast and twitchy football player. This guy seems like, look at it. I mean, he catches and whoop, he makes guy. It's going to be a little bit different trying to do that against SEC defenders. I understand, but at least somebody who has a little bit of twitch to him, because that's one thing Arkansas was kind of lacking. Was in the yards after catch department. So hopefully he helps with that. And again, this is, like Andrew said, this is a guy who they're bringing in to try to, replace some of Isaiah Satania's production. This is not their Andrew Armstrong replacement. So keep it in context. And I think this is one that you can be optimistic about.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Curtis, because I see some people that are like, are we supposed to be excited about this little 5'8" guy from whatever? And like, look, this is not going to be the home run hitter of the portal exit for Arkansas. Like, this is not going to be like their main attraction in the wide receiver room. Like we said, like Curtis said, they're hoping to bring in at least 3, maybe 4, maybe even 5 receivers. Pretty much anyone they can get their hands on with some legitimate experience. But yeah, it's not like Arkansas is bringing this kid in and being like, hey, we're going to build our offense around Raylen Sharpe. I think he's a nice complementary piece to some of these other receivers that hopefully they're able to bring in. And so we'll see what the roster ends up looking like. But yeah, again, like we said, this is a nice start. This is a nice piece to have. This is not someone you build your offense around. And I don't think that's what Arkansas is bringing him in here to do. I think this is I hate to I promise I'm not saying this is a shot. When Sam Pittman talks about, hey, we feel like we can build a pretty good roster without having to spend a ton of money, this is the kind of guy you think of. A guy that's a nice piece that can help your football team, probably doesn't cost hardly anything. And again, that kind of frees you up to go spend some money elsewhere on some other situations. And so I think they're betting on the character and betting on the guy that they've seen. They know what they can do with him. And I do think it's interesting that his best year at Missouri State was after Petrino and Fouch left. But I think they saw something in him clearly, because I think he was a guy that they even were thinking about bringing in last year. And so it's kind of cool to see this all come full circle, and we'll see what this coaching staff's able to do. But I do think that, this is one where if you're a Hog fan and you're trying to talk yourself in, just trust Bobby Petrino and Fouch's evaluation. They know the kid, they know what he's capable of, and they know how to use him and how he can fit in this offense.
For sure.
Well, and I know another thing you guys may have brought it up, but when I was uploading the video, I wasn't sure. But another thing you got to love about this kid, guys, is his passing. He's 1 for 1, and he threw a touchdown pass this past year. So for 26 yards.
It's a better quarterback than Traylon Burks. So
yes, he is. Let's say if only Kendall Briles got his hands on this kid, he could throw all the trick plays at him. So
yeah, and I'll say this too, and I know we got a handful of chats we probably want to get to, but I think I'm kind of addressing a couple of them here. This calls into question a couple things, right? And we talked about it right before we got on. You can look at it in one of two ways, I think, with this. It's, okay, Arkansas got this kid in the slot. So does that mean that they're out on DT Sheffield, the stud receiver from North Texas that was on campus, just left, and now he's tweeting out, oh, decisions, like something's looming with him? Or are they serious about getting 4 to 5 receivers? Because I think then, like, if you had Sheffield, who had 66 receptions, 822 yards, and 11 touchdowns, for North Texas this year, if you have that as kind of a 1-2 punch on your 2 deep, I think you're really starting to feel pretty good about where this is trending, at least in the wide receiver department. I know they got a kid from Charlotte who's visiting. His name escapes me now.
Omega Blake is his name.
Thank you. How the hell could that name escape me? It's a great one. And then the JJ Hester kid from Oklahoma is on campus. And again, like you're seeing just like solid, just kind of like some reliable but not crazy production in there. You add some guys like that, that's cool. But then bring in a Sheffield, who is kind of a game breaker at a North Texas. Get a couple guys like that mixed in with a couple guys like Sharpe. Then you have a pretty solid receiving core, but you can only get one at a time. And this is the first one.
Yeah, you mentioned Omega Blake, and I'm glad you brought up his name. I am a huge fan of this kid. So he started his career at South Carolina, and then he just spent the past year, and he had 250 yards, a couple touchdowns at South Carolina in 2023. Then he goes over to Charlotte, which, by the way, was almost the home of Petrino, and he puts up 795 yards and 9 touchdowns. 24.8 yards per reception, which I believe was like one of the highest in the entire country. And it's a kid with 6'3", 180 with top end speed. That's the type of athletic build that you kind of want to go after. And again, like I feel like when you're talking about portal guys, you're either thinking of highly productive guys at Group of 5 schools or super talented guys that are at Power 4 schools that haven't produced yet. I think Omega Blake is kind of that perfect mix of both, because he's played at South Carolina. He was obviously there for a while, even had some production at South Carolina, but really took off at Charlotte. I think he's the type of guy that if you add him with this Raylen Sharpe pickup, now you're starting to see a real mix of skill sets in that Arkansas wide receiver room. And DT Sheffield, I feel like, is a nice one. He's another guy that has a lot of maturity about him, has some get open over the middle, but also has some big play threat to him. So yeah, I think there's you can kind of see the makings of a nice receiving core for Arkansas. We'll see if it really works out that way. I'm really, really hoping that Raylen Sharpe was not like their insurance policy for DT Sheffield, meaning that he's not coming to Arkansas. I really hope there's a couple more of these big name guys that we like, but we'll see how it works out. But I mean, again, I don't think people should be reacting to the Raylen Sharpe news and being like, that's it. That's all Arkansas is going to get at receiver. Like this is just the beginning. Now we'll see. I'm not guaranteeing that they're going to get these other guys, but those are the type of guys that they're trying to get after.
And we'll get to the chat. I want to bring this up, and I'm not trying to be Johnny Raincloud over here. However, I can't help but I'm hoping he's great. I really do. I hope he's awesome. I hope he really helps out. But I just can't remember of any time you've seen a wide receiver under 5'10" be successful at Arkansas. I mean, it doesn't really happen. So that would be the main issue that I would have. Now, I think we even brought up Richard Smith, was a smaller wide receiver that had success at Arkansas. I don't know if he was 5'9", 5'10". He was not very big, and he was able to have success. I get it. But, this is the SEC, man. I mean, going up against corners that are going to be 6'2", linebackers that are going to be 6'3". If you're going to be short like that, if you're going to be on the smaller side, then make up with it with your legs, because that's what he's going to have to do if this Petrino offense. And he may not even be somebody they really rely on. I'm just saying that if they are going to look at this guy and they are going to try to get him in position, he better have something to make up for it, because I don't think they're going to be going downfield or having him go up and get it in the end zone, in the red zone, or anything like that.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. It's all about how you define success for an individual. And I think if the expectations are right for this kid, which is, to me, somebody who's going to be on the field for you, but probably not your go-to guy, Petrino, do your thing. Mm-hmm. Get him in space, get him the football, and then see what happens. And don't have him in those one-on-ones, and he'll be all right.
Yep. And so a few chats here real quick before we get off, because I'm sure there'll be some other things that'll be popping off. But shout out, because it's super chat. But Wild YT just said, thank goodness my Commanders are at halftime. Yeah, well,
it's just we got a run of things happening at halftime, so.
Yeah, it worked out perfectly there. So Dalton says, I know I'm going to get hated on, but I'd much rather have Sheffield over Sharpe. Says to everyone saying, why not both? We lack size in the receiver room.
Yeah, I was just going to say I started that one because I wanted to make sure to bring up Sheffield. Like I said, like you can kind of look at it in one of two ways, that, they got a guy, so now maybe they're just moving on from Sheffield. I tend to think that they would maybe like to have both, because I just know that they've got so much that they want to accomplish in the receiver room. But yeah, I would go Sheffield over Sharpe as well. And why not both? We like size in the receiver room. I think you're going to get your size on the outside. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think that's not something that I'm worried about here with these two guys in particular. I guess what I'm saying.
No, I agree. And I agree. Like, I think everyone should probably view it as Sheffield is who you really want. Sharpe is also a guy you want. And like I said, I hope that it's not the case, and I don't think it is, that this was like their backup plan. And because Sheffield, we think he's still on campus right now, right? Or he should be wrapping up his visit, maybe this morning or this afternoon. Like in the next few hours, we'll probably be hearing some type of visit recap for him. But no, I hope that this doesn't take Arkansas out of the Sheffield sweepstakes. And he is definitely still like one of those guys that's more up at the top of the list, but I don't think getting Raylen Sharpe disqualifies you from going after any of those other guys. Cause again, it's not like Arkansas allocated a shit ton of funds over here for Raylen Sharpe. I think it's still Arkansas still going to be in the mix for a lot of those other guys.
And I get it. Size is important, but you also had size this year on the wide receiver room. And I mean, you only had one guy that was really consistent. And it was Andrew Armstrong. So it doesn't just because you have some size in the wide receiver room does not mean that it's just going to equal success. Let's see a couple other chats here. Transplanted Texan says TG needs short yardage receivers so he can quickly dump the ball instead of scrambling backwards.
This is a great point.
That's
this
very
is a
good
great point. And that's the one thing for sure that I do think Raylen Sharpe will bring is that guy that's just a quick. I mean, you read off his stat lines there, Curtis. It's a lot of 6 catches for 60 yards, 5 catches for 55 yards, like a lot of just short, quick completions, which honestly I feel like the Arkansas offense just didn't have much of this past year.
Yeah, he didn't. Or they didn't. Let's see. Also, like this from Rainey. She says, great pickup, but still tired of us targeting Fresno State guys and not trying to make a play at elite talent.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. And I would say, hey, relax. Like they're going to make a play at elite talent. With the elite, like the top end guys in the portal, Arkansas really just hasn't been connected to many of them, like especially the power conference guys or the SEC guys. They have, obviously they've got the Oklahoma transfer, like some, next tier, power 4 guys. We've seen that. I'm with you though. And like, they're going to have to go get guys like this. That's just kind of part of the deal when you got so many additions that you have to make. And they're going to get, kind of their, Nico Slaughters and everything of the worlds in terms of guys who are maybe backups at an SEC school. You're just going to see some of that. But I am with you. Like, I wish that their name was at least popping up with these top end dudes, right? Of hell, even if you don't get them, like, hey, this dude's visiting Arkansas or Arkansas's in the mix or a finalist. Sometimes it's just like window dressing when you're in a grouping like that. But you'd like to see Arkansas in there with some of the biggest of the fish. I'm with you.
I'm with you. And like, my response to that would be like, I mean, the head coach, the leader, kind of pretty much told us that wasn't going to be the case. I think if Arkansas does make a play at some of those elite guys, it's going to be 1 or 2 here and there at specific positions. I don't think you're going to be able to fill an entire roster full of those guys. And so again, that's why I think this Raylen Sharpe news is one that you can just kind of accept for what it is, which is just a solid pickup guy that fills out the depth chart. I mean, kind of like not too dissimilar from the Oklahoma corner they got yesterday, where it's like doesn't move the needle, might not excite the fan base, but it's a guy that's going to fill a spot in the two deep, which like if you're Arkansas right now, you kind of just have to do. And again, I don't think that these moves necessarily mean that Arkansas can't make some of those cooler moves that are going to get us excited.
Yeah, no, I think that we could sit here and say what it's going to be, what it's not going to be, but we never know. I mean, most of the time, like with this particular situation with Raylen Sharpe popping off, it's not like we knew, at 1:30 exactly on Sunday that this is going to happen. A lot of cases, it's just, kind of going along with the motions and seeing what happens from it. But, they're going to get some guys, they're going to get some people that may be even surprising. But at the end of the day, it's about the full body of work and what this is going to look like. But yeah, also some other chats. I was going to bring up this because Robert wanted to know, what about the tight end position?
Well, they're trying to bring in 3 transfers at tight end, and that's a lot. And, they'll do that. I think the Atkins kid out of Northwest Missouri State, and he's an interesting one, man, because he's highly sought after and highly regarded out of the portal as a Division II guy. So I was like, man, he must have absolutely killed it. He really didn't.
No.
So like, maybe he's a physical specimen, a freak. I don't know. But I know that he's one Arkansas is really high on, who's already visited. Jordan Platt from Texas A&M, who was just like, I don't want to say looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane, but he certainly looks like Tarzan. I mean, the dude's an absolute freak of nature in terms of size there, but just hasn't had any, real tangible production at A&M for a couple years. That's one who visited. I think Florida State is also in there. So like, yeah, I mean, they're targeting some guys. They're going to get some, and I'd imagine they're going to get at least one who we haven't even heard about yet, because they got a lot of work to do in that room.
Yeah, ideally you would get both of those guys, Platt and Atkins, and I think there's very much room for that. And I also think that Atkins is kind of the like you said, he didn't have a ton of production, but he does seem like a pretty safe bet just based on the measurables, based on the fact that how many people are recruiting him. Because I noticed the same thing, Curtis, where you kind of hear, I think he's like the number 2 tight end in the portal or something like that. Like he's rated very highly, but the production isn't necessarily there. I'm not going to sit here and lie and act like I was watching Northwest Missouri film or anything like that. So I have no idea what offense they're running. Maybe it was just like a thing where they didn't feature the tight ends a ton, but I do think he's kind of your safe option. And if you can get him, that's a potential starting tight end. And I think that frees you up to take a shot for a guy at Jaden Platt, who is a top 100, or maybe not top 100. I think he might have been 101 in his class or something like that. But a former highly recruited guy who hasn't proved a ton, is a little bit of a question mark, but might be a high ceiling guy. And so would love to see them bring in both of those. And like, I definitely think they're going to bring in minimum 2 tight ends from the portal.
I will say I didn't realize this till bringing up Zach Atkins. This comes from 24/7 Sports, that apparently when he was a freshman in college, he was 6 feet nothing, 190 pounds. And then he hit a spurt, and now he's 6'3", 240. So he grew 3 inches and gained 50 pounds. And that's where I think a lot of the, athletic freakness that people are falling in love with came from. And guess where he's out of originally? Any guesses?
Atkins?
Yeah.
I do not know.
Overland Park. You know who else was from Overland Park?
The entire baseball team.
Yeah, pretty much. So, there's no connection.
Dude, it's crazy that Arkansas football doesn't recruit Kansas City that much.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a freaking hotbed for everything. And it's just become so good for the baseball program. You'd think that there'd be 2 or 3 players each year from the Kansas City area that Arkansas would like to get. So maybe Atkins can mend the bridge there.
Hey, they got Monty Harrison, right? Kansas City.
Yeah.
So that's about it, but that's all they got. All right, guys, any final thoughts before we roll out of here? Any other chats we want to get to?
Not really, because I mean, there's a decent chance we'll be back at some point today. I mean, this is kind of the way this thing works right now, especially on weekends with all these visits. I will just say visits like that live period lasts through this time next week, through the 22nd. So they're going to have a ton more kids coming in between now and next Sunday. And commits are going to be popping left and right. So head on the swivel. And some of them, again, like we'll talk about it. We'll be like, hey, just you got to have context and understand what this edition means. But we're certainly looking forward to being able to hopefully chat about some big pops here soon. Because they need it, man. Because I get it. I'm not trying to gaslight anybody. They got a lot of work to do. They got to get a lot better, but you got to start somewhere. So, hey, at least they're adding some dudes now, because I was getting depressed talking about all the guys getting the hell out of here.
Yeah. It is nice to cover some additions. We look forward to doing that a little bit more, and we'll just see if the Hogs can moneyball their way to a great roster.
Well, I guess we'll find out here in the next few days, but no matter what it is, you better be here at Inside Arkansas. So subscribe to us on YouTube at Inside Arkansas. Follow us on social media at Inside Arkansas. Check out our website at InsideArkansas.com for all the latest and greatest up-to-date information. As we're going to be on Portal Watch this entire week. We'll pop off with a live stream anytime something happens. So be sure to hit that bell up there so you get notified anytime we go live. So for Andrew Ellis and Curtis Wilkerson, I'm John Neighbor. Same sports show, same sports channel. Whenever the next pop happens, we'll see you folks then. Have a great rest of your day.